Turn up your volume. because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked the young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. 8.6 beer. Intense by nature. And Locage. If the last time you went to Locage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Locage. It's gonna be sick.
All right, Marinaro, there we go. I was just retweeting that we're on, and I'm going to be taking your calls at 1-888-585-7425 tonight, but I won't only be taking your calls. As a matter of fact, I have a special guest who's going to join me probably in the next 15 minutes or so, and we're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens beating the Detroit Red Wings tonight. Yes, this happened, and I have to tell you that even though everyone knows that I want the rebuild, and even though I know everyone knows that I say that when they pick up points, it kind of upsets me, I really enjoyed this hockey game tonight. A lot of people will say that Jake Allen stole this one, and clearly Jake Allen was amazing because he stopped 41 of 43, and not to mention that he came up very, very big in the shootouts as well, only giving up a goal to David Perron. And Lucas Raymond, he makes a big stop off of him. We're going to recap the game for those of you who missed it. Allen was colossal. So was the Montreal Canadiens penalty kill, by the way, because the Detroit Red Wings went on the power play seven times in this hockey game, including a 5-minute major that was given to Juraj Slafkowski. Mind you, it wasn't a power play for 5 minutes because a couple of minutes later, the Red Wings themselves picked up a penalty. But wow, this game had everything. The Canadiens showed a lot of guts, and they showed a lot of determination. Once again, I'm not just going to go with Jake Allen stole the game. Was Jake Allen the best player in this hockey game tonight? Yes. Was Mike Hoffman the best Montreal Canadiens forward? Yes, he was. He was the most productive. And what I like is that I saw engagement from Hoffman. And over the last couple of days here, Kent Hughes has been criticized. Jeff Gordon has been criticized by some fans and some members of the media because they don't understand how it wasn't the Jonathan Drouin who was put on waivers. They don't understand how it wasn't a Dadonov who was put on waivers. And they don't understand how it wasn't a Mike Hoffman who was put on waivers. Now, Jonathan Drouin didn't pick up any points in tonight's hockey game. And neither did Evgeny Dadonov. But hear me out. Mike Hoffman scored 2 goals. This is how quickly things change in the game of hockey, all right? Take a look at Mike Hoffman's value yesterday, and then take a look at Mike Hoffman's value tonight after scoring 2 goals in this hockey game. Now, some of you are going to say he's still not going to be able to fetch anything at the deadline. That's what you think now on Tuesday, November 8th. But we don't know what's going to happen at the end of February, and we don't know. We don't know. If Mike Hoffman has 4 or 5 more of these games, his value is going to go up. Now, a lot of you are messaging me right now that Mike Hoffman's value is still nothing. That's fine. And listen, I don't disagree with you. One game doesn't change things a lot, but it changes things a little bit. Take a look at the stock market. You probably have a penny stock, right? Well, a penny stock has some days where it actually goes from 3 cents and maybe even doubles up at 6 cents. Hoffman's value went up tonight. All right. So it probably didn't go up a ton for you, but if it's a penny stock, it went up. And now I'm getting that they're tapping goals and this and that. They were rebound goals, yes. But you know what? A scorer is a scorer is a scorer. And he's a guy who has scored in his career. And I'm telling you that there are other guys who would have shot the puck right back at Ville Husso's pads. And Husso would have made a save, even though most of the cage was empty. And listen, let's give credit where credit is due. Mike Hoffman played a good hockey game tonight. Come on. You're not going to tell me he didn't. Now, unfortunately, the two other guys, Drouin and Dadonov, not really. As a matter of fact, Jonathan Drouin ended up losing the puck with the Canadiens on the power play. He mishandled it, and it's a breakaway going the other way, very unfortunately. Drouin is a man without confidence right now, and hopefully he can find himself a goal here. And I was hoping that he was going to score in the shootout when he's got that patented move where he fakes forehand, he lifts the leg, he fakes the forehand, he goes backhand, and Husso bit. But unfortunately, he couldn't get the puck up and over Husso. It's Marinaro. It's the Sick Podcast. We're live on Twitter. We're live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. It's absolutely free. Tell your friends about it. Tell them that this podcast is pretty sick. Brought to you in part by 8.6 Beer, intense like me by nature. The beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. Tonight's win by the Canadiens was team concept. In the world of a very, very smart hockey man, in the words of a very smart hockey man, team concept, total emotion, and motivation. All right, so there you have it. Brendan Gallagher, since the hands were fractured, both of them, I have not seen a huge slap shot from him, or for that matter, even a lively wrist shot. Well, we saw a couple of them tonight, because just under 6 minutes into the hockey game, Gallagher, who's a right-handed shot, is going down the left wing, and he takes a very lively wrist shot, which goes off of Ville Husso's shoulder, and the puck just basically jumps out to Mike Hoffman, and he's able to tap it home or shoot it home. And then Dylan Larkin, killing a penalty, gets interfered with, and there's a penalty shot. Even though he was able to get a shot away, we know that if you're getting slashed on a breakaway now, you're going to get a penalty shot. And unfortunately for him, he mishandled the puck, and he was able to get it back on his stick before actually taking a shot. He kind of muffed on it a little bit. He got it back, but Jake Allen just followed him the whole way and basically took away the entire corner from him. And Jake Allen actually made it look pretty easy, a save on Dylan Larkin, who's, one of the better players in the National Hockey League. 15 points, in 12 games going into tonight's hockey game. Less than 11 minutes after Mike Hoffman had given the Montreal Canadiens a 1-0 lead, Edmondson is behind the net, and Arbor Jackeye is going to make some mistakes. He's going to make some bad reads, some bad reacts, some bad decisions. He made one because he goes behind the net as well, and it leaves Snarzik open all alone, and he gets a pass, and he's able to, right in the slot all alone, and he's able to put it by Jake Allen. But Mike Hoffman gets a huge goal for the Canadiens with 16 seconds left in period number 1, once again off of a Brendan Gallagher rebound, and his second goal of the game almost looked exactly like his first goal of the game. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. They're an asset-based, and make no mistake, they don't make water. They give this to their employees, and I'm pretty lucky because they delivered a case to me. They're nice people. But Energy Transportation Group is an asset-based 3PL provider. That's what they do. They offer outstanding service at incredible rates, serving all of North America. Energy Transportation Group offers full-service logistics support. It's also a great place to call work. Let me tell you that right now. On to period number 2, and in period number 2, there were no goals to be scored, so the Canadiens still had that 2-1 lead. Unfortunately for the Canadiens, though, David Savard, I'm not so quite sure what he was upset about. If I would have been at the game in Detroit at Little Caesars Arena, I'd probably have a better idea, but he was pretty livid, and he let the referee have it as he made his way back to the locker room, and guess what? Once he comes out for the third period, we find out that David Savard was going to be spending 10 minutes in the penalty box, he got a misconduct. And that hurts the Canadians because, let's face it, David Savard is the one guy on defense who eats up the most minutes. He blocks a lot of shots. And that guy sacrifices his body. I got to tell you, if we could pick who's got more bruises on their body of any Montreal Canadiens player or defenseman, that is, David Savard would probably be a pretty good guess. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Lacage. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you go back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you. And on to period number 3. And Lucas Raymond ties this game at 2. As for Juraj Slafkovsky, there was a hit that was reminiscent of the hit that Josh Anderson laid out a couple of days ago. It's when you have a player up against the boards and, you push him by the side and he ends up going flying. And look, I know this sounds kind of weird because it didn't look good, and it didn't look good at all. But I don't think Slafkovsky meant to hit Luff the way he did, who went into the boards face first. It was not a nice thing to see. I don't think there was malicious intent, but it is what it is. And it did happen. And he did receive a 5-minute major penalty, and it was deserving. And once again, the Red Wings go on the power play, but you can't find the winner there. There were a couple of things that really impressed me in overtime. One of them was, and I'm not so sure, there's so many things to think about, but, and I'm getting that Slafkovsky barely touched him. All right, well, he barely touched him. It was a penalty, okay? Oh, my G, did you even watch the game, Marinaro? Come on, man. No. I didn't watch the game, okay? I'm here doing a podcast about the Canadiens and about the hockey game, but I didn't watch the game, all right? I went out with my wife. We took a walk in the forest. I got on my treadmill. I went and I made myself a coffee. I spent the rest of the night in my spa. I didn't watch the game whatsoever, okay? Folks, I know it's not the same hit as Anderson, who obviously had malicious intent. I mentioned that it looked like it, but there was no malicious intent from Slafkovsky, but it's a hit that happened. He pushed him, and he went into the face. He went into boards face first, and it happens, okay? So please, don't tell me I didn't watch the game. I watched the game. The biggest insult you can ever give me is tell me that I didn't watch the game because you don't agree with my interpretation of what I saw. Sports is a beautiful thing. Why? It's subjective. You see it through your eyes. I see it through my eyes. Everyone sees it through their own eyes. All right? Okay? This is the way I saw it. I'm trying to explain it to those who probably didn't see it, that it kind of resembled what we saw with Anderson. Anderson had malicious intent. Slafkovsky did not. He didn't mean to do it, but it happened. These things happen quickly, especially when a player's on the side. He went into the boards, and by the letter of the law, he deserved the penalty. I don't know what else to tell you. And now he says, calm down, man. I've been listening to you for 17 years. I really appreciate that you've been listening to me for 17 years. Thank you very much. But because your interpretation of the hit is different than mine, I mean, you don't have to insult me by telling me that I even watched the game. Of course, I watched the game. And I will tell you this. It's 20 years that I do this. And folks, listen very carefully to what I tell you. For the entire 20 years that I've done this, never, with a capital N-E-V-E-R, did I not watch the game and then go on to talk about it. That's not me. Maybe it's others. It's not me. I really enjoyed this hockey game tonight. When it went to overtime, did you see the shift by Caden Gooley? It was unbelievable. At a certain point, he looked like a man possessed, that he was the one who was going to score the game-winning goal in overtime. His shift was sick, S-I-C-K, which is, if you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm loving doing it, if you're enjoying it, comment sick, message me sick, do it on Facebook, do it on Twitter, do it on YouTube. It was awesome. And then the way he was trying to get the puck away. He was forechecking 300. He's coming back. He was a general. It was amazing. I loved this game tonight. Like, I really loved the game. Maybe I didn't love the result because it hurts the rebuild. And by the way, I mentioned in camp that because I want the rebuild to happen, I would have traded Jake Allen instead of keeping him. Not because I don't like him and not because he's not good, because I like him and because he's good and because he's going to steal points. And some people got back to me and said, Tony, the Canadians aren't going to be very good. Jake Allen is not going to steal points. He'll be able to stand on his head. He still won't steal points. Well, tonight he stood on his head. He stopped 41 of 43. And guess what? He stole points. The Sick Podcast, brought to you in part by 8.6 Beer, Intense by Nature, La Cage, and Energy Transportation Group. Because if the last time you went to La Cage was when they won the cup. Listen, they're going to win the cup one day. I'm going to tell you that, and I've said this before, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, welcome, and thank you for supporting the podcast. Really appreciate it. We've been getting a lot of your messages over the past couple of days. People are wondering, by the way, if with the new format, we're getting more views. Let me answer it this way. It's very hard to go live every 24 hours for 1 week straight and get more views than when you were recording and uploading every 2.5 days, because everyone has a chance to watch the podcast for about 2 days before the next one comes up. When you're going live every night, well, you go live and then there's 24 hours, not even 24 hours, yet 24 hours later, and then you're doing it all over again. So you move on to the next one. But we're trying to accomplish other things. We're trying to, accomplish basically consistency with the podcast Monday to Friday, starting at 10 p.m. or right after the Montreal Canadiens hockey game. If it ends later than 10 p.m., a structure. We're going to be taking calls. We know that you're very passionate and you want to weigh in. And no winner in overtime. They go to PK. Caulfield goes first. He swings left. He goes far corner. He scores. Lucas Raymond swings right, but a left pad save by Jake Allen. Suzuki does the opposite of Caulfield, well, on the opposite wing, but the same thing. He swings right, and he shoots far corner. He scores. Perron scores on a quick wrist shot. And then Jonathan Drouin is stopped by Billy Husso, a left pad save. And Dylan Larkin goes last. And it was a good night for Dylan Larkin. In one respect, he was flying. But another respect, in terms of being opportunistic, he was not. And in terms of being all alone versus Jake Allen, it wasn't very good because he missed, and missed again. We bring in our guy. Here he is. Matthew Ohayon, who brings you the Sick Podcast with Matthew Ohayon every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. What's going on?
I'm good, Tone. You keep me waiting. What's going on with you?
I keep you waiting. Well, how long?
Yeah,
have you been there?
I've been there for 10 minutes already.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Listen,
I told you.
When
I
I
told
was
you
single,
10:20.
when I was single, I had women waiting for me all their lives.
Yeah, I know, but I hold myself to a high standard here.
What did you think?
I saw it way differently than you did. I really didn't like this game at all.
Really?
I thought the first period, while they got goals in the first period. I thought it was a terrible effort. I thought they were very, very lucky to get those goals. Great play by Gallagher to shoot it into the pads on 2 occasions.
Yes.
For Mike Hoffman, Mike Hoffman to scoop those up. Great plays.
Not two, if I can. The first one was off of the left shoulder. I watched it a couple of times, but it just seemed like Gallagher, and I'll go back to you in a second here, Matt, if I can. It just seemed like Gallagher was, instead of thinking of scoring, let me get 2 shots on net, and it resulted in 2 rebounds. I don't know if it was kind of intentional in that way of thinking. That's the way it looked. Continue.
Yeah, so I just found they were very lackluster in the first period. They didn't look like they were ready to play. Started to get a little better in the second, and then in the third, it looked like they were in control. And then, of course, the 5 minute takes the wind out of your sails. So it ended off on a very solid note. But I from start to end, that was not the best effort we saw all season.
Listen, somebody says that they think you have a better camera, which is kind of weird because your camera is a camera that I passed on to you, which sells for like $130, and mine is like a $4,000 camera. So why don't we do this? There's something wrong with my lighting here. Hold on a second. I got to do something. I got to shut off these lights. Anyway, whatever. I'll have somebody do it for me later. Okay. I will agree and disagree with you. The Detroit Red Wings were clearly better than the Montreal Canadiens. The Detroit Red Wings clearly dominated, especially the first period of this hockey game. And the Detroit Red Wings speed gave the Canadiens some problems. Their forecheck gave the Canadiens some problems. There's no doubt about it. The Red Wings are a better team. They had won 3 straight going into this game. The Canadiens had lost 3 straight.
Mm-hmm.
The Canadiens had a losing record. The Red Wings are 7-3-2. So the Red Wings are better to begin with. They're playing at home. They have the last line change. What I liked about the Canadiens is I like certain facets of their game. One, I love their penalty kill.
Oh,
they killed
they
off
had
7.
They were showcasing all night, basically.
They killed off 7 Detroit power plays. Number 2, I love the fact that they were opportunistic. Number 3, I like the fact that they blocked shots and they battled defensively. Number 4, I like that this was an exciting hockey game. Number 5, Jake Allen stood on his head, but there were some good performances from some players tonight that haven't always delivered a good performance. Mike Hoffman, that's his best game of the season.
Sure, I agree.
Well,
I agree. No, I agree. He put up 2 goals. I mean, he had a pretty big defensive gaffe where it was Mike Hoffman giveth, Mike Hoffman taketh away, but then he gave again.
But that's going to happen. That's Mike Hoffman. Brendan Gallagher tonight, in just 11 minutes and 12 seconds, had 5 shots on goal. He had the 2 assists. He was a +1. That was a big game for him. Suzuki logged a lot of ice time with 22:53. Slavkovsky had 10 minutes and 33 seconds. But you know what? Still, from him, I saw some things that, encourages me even more. Cole Caulfield didn't score tonight, but he did have 4 shots on goal. You got an assist for Christian Dvorak. Kirby Dach showed some shifts where I think he's stronger than a lot of people think, and I think he can protect the puck better than a lot of people think. Caden Gooley tonight logged 22 minutes and 50 seconds, had 2 shots, and was a +1 in this hockey game. Matt, there's some encouraging signs, man.
No, for sure. And that was a massive game for Gallagher. I think he needed that because, he's not the first line guy anymore. He's now the third line guy, and we all have to live with that. But what the one name I'll disagree with, while he did log a lot of minutes and played very, very well defensively, I'm going to preface that by saying this, is that I really tonight proved to me one thing. If Nick Suzuki is not making an impact offensively, the Canadiens are most likely not going to win the game. They won on the back of Jake Allen. I think we could both agree on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's just, it goes back to the old Sam Mitchell saying, he played 23 minutes and he's got the stat line 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, while I understand he was on the ice for 4.5 minutes of those were shorthanded, I was a little disappointed offensively because I was watching at my uncle's house and I said to him, I go, wow, I haven't said Nick Suzuki's name tonight. And, it's not a slight on him because he's been so good this season and just by far the Canadiens' best player. But when you set the standard that high, it's kind of tough to have a bad game and watch someone have a bad game like that.
Yeah, listen, I can understand that. You're right. But look, we know that for the most part right now, Matt, they're a one-line team, right?
Oh,
It's only that
It's
line that
very
scores
clear.
goals. Tonight, though, another line scored 2 goals, and they won. Once again, was Allen the best player in this game? Yes. If Jake Allen was human tonight instead of being superhuman, they lose. But goalies are going to steal games in the National Hockey League. Maybe not as many as before, but they will. And listen, I thought it was an entertaining hockey game. I want entertainment, and we saw it tonight. I mean, the game had everything tonight. It had some big hits, it had some big saves, it had some great plays, it had some nice goals, it had some power plays, it had overtime, it had penalty shots or a penalty shot, it had shootout. What more do you want? What more do you want?
You know, I'll say this. I like this win. I didn't like the game, but I like the win because it's better for the Canadians to win in that way than to lose the way Detroit did. How about that?
That's
you know,
fine.
they clearly deserve the game. They clearly deserve the game. It must be so dejecting to lose a game like that. Granted they got a point, but still, imagine, you know, you lose a game, you dominated for 85% of it, you come away with only 1 point. That's a little disappointing. Whereas the Canadians can come away saying, "Hey, we it was a gutsy victory. We eked that one out. Let's be better tomorrow night in front of our own fans."
The only thing that upsets me a little bit is once again, it's a step back in terms of the rebuild, but it's one game. I'm interested to see what's going to happen tomorrow night versus the Vancouver Canucks when the Montreal Canadiens host them at the Bell Center. It's going to be a 7:30 start. And once again, as soon as that game is over, we're going to be back with the Sick Podcast going live the way we do weeknights between 10 p.m. and whatever time. We usually go for about an hour. But tomorrow we'll go once again as soon as the game is over. And Matt brings you the Sick Podcast on Fridays. So I go Monday to Thursday. He goes on Fridays. And tonight he's actually even helping out a little bit as we bring you a little bit of a duel. These are things that we're going to do every now and then. Matt's going to jump in from time to time, and we're going to bring you the Sick Podcast together. I'm going to jump in from time to time on Fridays with Matt, and we're going to bring you the Sick Podcast together. And who knows? We might even get the Detroit Beastie, Chris, who was on the show last night, even jump in to give us his Detroit Red Wings perspective. A team, by the way, Matt, who I watched them play. Who do they remind you of? A little bit, like in the making of? Do they remind you of anyone in particular?
Off the top of my head, not quite.
I see a team that can one day play like the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh yeah, I could see. Yeah. You know what? You're right. That I don't know if it's their third or fourth line, but it's like a line of monsters out there. It's Samuelson, and they have a rookie on that line that Soderblom.
Yeah,
and there's another one out there, obviously, because there's 3 players on the line.
They're huge, eh? By the way, that line
it's a monster line.
Yeah, they're absolutely huge. That line is absolutely huge, and it's the. Well, they had they got a couple of injuries, but and they have right now they have Larkin playing with Raymond and Pius Suter. They have Kopp with Perron and Kubalik. Kubalik, by the way, he can put the puck in the net big time. Not sure Agnello. Would you have the lineup for the Detroit Red Wings that we can put it up? If you do, just put it up. I'd like to take a look at it. And if you don't, that's okay. Just send me a note and tell me if we don't. But okay, here it is. Fantastic. Agnello and Sammy doing great work and master control. Larkin with Raymond and Suter. Kopp with Perron and Kubalik. Rasmussen with Snarzik and Earn. And Veleno, Soderblom, and Luff. Joe Veleno, by the way, Montreal kid, and David Perron from Sherbrooke, Quebec, Sherratt, Sider, Mata, Roenick, and Osterley and Lindstrom with Husso in goal. I have to tell you, when I talked about the Tampa Bay Lightning, okay, where does the comparison start with them and the Lightning? It starts with their architect, their general manager, Steve Yzerman, who used to be the general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And it just seems like there's some pieces in place that kind of reminds me of the Lightning. Now, Husso is not Vasilevsky, and maybe he never will be. Seider, just yet, as good as he is, he's really good. He's not Hedman, but I think he's going to be a Hedman for the next 12, 13 years in the National Hockey League. I'm not so sure that Dylan Larkin will be Stamkos, because Stamkos was able to score a lot of goals. And, Kucherov scores a lot of goals. And look, the Lightning obviously have a lot of depth. They won the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row and went to the Stanley Cup final last year and losing out to the Colorado Avalanche. But they got some players on that team. Lucas Raymond is going to score goals in this league. Dominic Kubelik is going to score goals in this league. Pavel Zadina is hurt right now, but if you can recall, when the Montreal Canadiens drafted Jesperi Kotkaniemi with the 3rd pick overall, a lot of people wanted the Montreal Canadiens to draft Pavel Zadina. Unfortunately, he's out with an injury long-term, but if he comes into his own and if he's able to do at the National Hockey League level what he did before the National Hockey League, they're gonna be a team that's gonna resemble the Tampa Bay Lightning. They play a puck possession style game. They have an active penalty kill. They have a very aggressive forecheck. They try and get back that puck in a hurry. I like Detroit, and in Steve Yzerman, I trust. And I know he's not a Stanley Cup champion in terms of being a general manager. It's Julien Brisebois who won those 2 cups. Brisebois did a great job, but I also think he inherited a lot of great work that Steve Yzerman did.
Oh, yeah, he did. Steve Yzerman is definitely, for the most part, the architect of that Tampa Bay team. I would say 90% of it, or the 2 teams rather. I agree with you. They play with a lot of speed too, and they're big. That's it. That's the impressive thing. In the NHL, it's one thing to have a big team. And to play a big game. It's another thing to have a fast team, but you're usually pretty small. Man, these guys could fly out there. I was really impressed with Dominic Kubelik tonight, for one. I mean, that guy, he looks lethal on the power play. Lucas Raymond, the way he's turned his season around. I think he went his first 7 games without scoring a goal, and he has, I think, 5 or 6 since. So he's just an unbelievable player. I really like the makeup of the Red Wings. You're right. Now that you draw it out, you're right, which you usually are right. So
well, listen. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You didn't have to say that, but thank you. I'll take that.
Listen, Tyler, I'm still waiting for you to throw some flowers my way for my sick picks on Friday.
Oh, that's right. I actually read on social media that you were 5-0 with your picks.
I was
on Friday. That's amazing. I didn't retweet it, by the way, because I figured a lot of people were going to want me to get fired and you to get the full-time gig and stuff like that. But seeing as you brought it up, I have to tell you, that's really impressive.
Yeah.
When you go 5-0 with your sick picks, that's not fluke.
Well, listen,
there's some work there. There's some research work there.
Well, listen, I'll say this. I had won my Sunday parlays the 2 weeks prior to this past week. And then Sammy and Aniello texted me saying, "Hey, you mind giving a couple picks on the podcast on Friday?" And I go, "Well, I said it on the episode. I said, well, now that I won money the past 2 weeks and I kept my picks to myself, I'm going to be giving picks. I'm going to be losing people money and everyone's going to be calling me an idiot." And then, Saturday day happens with Georgia and Tennessee. Georgia covers. And then Saturday night, it's 2-2 heading into the 3rd period between Vegas and Montreal. And I'm going, I don't know if that one's going to happen. And then, it just fell into place. It was awesome.
All right, one more thing in the Detroit Red Wings, and then we'll stop talking about them because they're a thing of the past now. The Canadiens play them, and they're going to, prepare to play the Vancouver Canucks tomorrow night at the Bell Center. Is that we should mention that even Tyler Bertuzzi's not in the lineup tonight, and that's another very useful player. And his name has come up over the past couple of years because there could be a few issues there and stuff like that. But when he's on, that kid can play hockey. All right. So now, Juraj Slafkovsky, suspension, yes or no, and why?
No. I thought the refs got it right. I think it was a 5 in a game for sure. They got that one right.
Yeah.
But to me, when you compare what Anderson did to Slavkovsky, Anderson's coming in with speed. Slavkovsky, the play is around him. The puck's in the player's feet. He's looking down at the puck. And Slavkovsky hit him in the numbers, but he didn't come in with speed. It wasn't boarding. It was a hit from behind. Or they called it as boarding, but I didn't see it because boarding to me is kind of like charging into the boards.
Mhm.
So I don't see a suspension. Worst, I see it as a one gamer, not anything crazy. Like it wasn't that malicious.
Yeah, no. Your thoughts on Slavkovsky basically passing the 9-game mark with his 10th game with the Canadiens. So if I would have told you during the preseason that Slavkovsky is going to be here for more than 9 games, you would have said what exactly?
I would have believed you. I definitely would have believed you because I think, well, first of all, the Canadiens need the help up front. I mean, they have options there, but not exactly quality. So I would believe you in that way. But I also, had you told me in the middle of the season, if he had a stint with Laval, I would believe you as well. And I think that could still happen because
Yeah.
it's a long season. Things happen. He could go through a major slump, and he might need some uplifting. They might want to show him some things down there that he could implement into his game. So
he actually hit Luff tonight the way he got hit a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly, and then Luff just ended up going face first into the boards. And Rossi didn't hit him. He didn't get hit face first in the boards. And, Luff was bleeding and it looked really bad and really scary. Whereas on Slavkovsky, he just kind of fell. And it didn't, just because a play, it's the same thing with the 4-minute penalty.
Yeah.
It makes no sense that you're penalizing based off of injury.
Hey, if the Canadiens, it seems like in previous years when Carey Price was in goal, it almost seems like if they brought the game to overtime, they tried to keep the puck away from the other team, thinking if they go to shootout, they got a good chance because they got Carey in goal. Well, if they go to shootout now, they got a good chance because it almost seems like Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki have so much confidence right now, especially Caulfield, even when he kind of mishandles the puck or whatever, that wrist shot is just so lively and so fast. Goalies have a hard time reacting to it.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about them going to 3-on-3 is, it's funny you mentioned the Canadiens in past. They would kind of rely on Carey Price and whatnot, but now it's kind of the roles are reversed. You don't want the Canadiens to have the puck on 3-on-3 because he's so lethal. Cole Caulfield is at 5-on-5 with his shot. Now imagine him having all that space and ice to work with. He's bound to have more space to rip off that shot. So it's really fun watching players like that in 3-on-3. And I mean, that duo, what more could you say? I think RDS had a graphic that, they're of the dynamic duos of the league this season. They're at the top of the list of scoring the majority of percentage of goals for their team. I think there's something at 45% for the team's goals. So
yeah,
I mean, they've got they got the pair of the future right there.
Yeah, you don't have to give them a plug, by the way. All right, why don't we do this? Let's open up the phone lines at 1-888-585-7425, 1-888-585-SICK, which is 7425. There you have it. Let's open up the phone lines. It's You Called.
You called. Presented by Playground.
Brought to you by Playground, your premier gaming destination located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. All right, so there's your number at 1-888-585-7425. Folks, we want to talk to you. We're going to try and get to all the calls. We ask, though, that you bring it, because if you're not going to bring it, it's just not going to last very long, right? We're trying to bring you a show with energy, and if it's not going to have the same energy, then we're going to move on to another call. We do appreciate all of you taking the time to give us a call. We do want to talk to you. We know you want to talk to us. So when we have calls here, Agnello will bring them up. 1-888-585-7425. 7425. I take a look at my monitor to see who's going to be calling in. You can talk to us about Juraj Slafkowski getting a 5-minute major penalty and a game misconduct. You can talk to us about the Canadiens' penalty kill, which killed off 7 Detroit power plays. Speaking of which, Matt, do you notice something that Marty St. Louis showed them a couple of weeks ago in practice that they're doing on the penalty kill? You know what I'm talking about?
Active stick?
No, not quite. But yes, an active stick is something that you use on the penalty kill. always 2 hands on the stick, always a stick on the ice to cut off passing lanes. But the defenseman sliding to take away the cross ice pass. If you notice on both sides of the goalie, whether it's the left or the right D, every time a lane opens up and the other team is going to do a cross ice pass to the other side, you're getting defensemen coming across and sliding on the ground to cut off a pass. And we saw some images of a couple of weeks ago of Marty St. Louis showing his defensemen how to actually slide. I think St. Louis was there. I think Stefan Robida was there as well. And he had a couple of players, and he was showing them how to slide to cut off that pass cross ice. And they're doing it. I saw them do it often tonight. I saw them doing it often, sliding basically to cut the pass. I saw it a lot. And you know what? They're doing it really, really good.
You know, now that you mention it, I did notice it on one specific play because it was a pretty big block, and it was David Savard who did it. Surprise, surprise. The guy is just insane. He slid on Kubalik, who had no more passing lane, and then he just basically had to shoot the puck right into Jake Allen's right into his chest. He had no other option. So now that you mention that, I do notice it.
All right. If you're going to be listening tomorrow, whether it's on Google, Apple, Spotify, on some of these social media apps, and you like what you're hearing and you like the way the show is going and the energy and the pace and me and Matt and all that stuff, leave us a 5-star review. We really, really appreciate it. And we're doing our best to try and get as many 5-star reviews as possible. When we don't get them, it really, really bothers us. But it motivates us to up the level. Let's go to Paul in New Brunswick. Paul, good evening, and thanks for calling the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro. He's Ohayon. What's on your mind, Paul?
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Not too bad. You actually covered 2 of my points I wanted to talk about tonight, so I'll go to my third. Arbor Jackeye.
Yeah.
Are the Canadians playing with a little bit more attitude because they possibly have an enforcer in their lineup right now?
I think they're playing with confidence because they have a guy like that who can put out fires. It obviously helps the confidence, and it makes everyone an inch or 2 taller. Now, I know that aspect is out of the game, but it's not out of the game, if you know what I mean. Matt?
No, I agree with you that it's out of the game, but it's not. But that's because you have a guy who plays that rough and tough game, but he can also play. That's the key. He's a very good defenseman, especially for his first year in the NHL. So I think that's what we're seeing, is that a guy who's not afraid to throw around his weight, but he's not doing it recklessly. He's also a very sound defenseman.
Yeah, I did a little number on Larkin tonight too, and 6'8", whatever his name is, went down 1 shot also. I noticed that.
You're absolutely right about that. Hey, Paul, thanks so much for calling us. I know we appreciate the calls, and we appreciate you calling in. Thank you. From beautiful New Brunswick, that was Paul. We continue to go to the phone lines at 1-888-585-SICK. That's 1-888-585-7425. We go to Hamilton. Joe in Hamilton. Joe, good evening. What's going on?
Good evening. Is this Tony?
It is.
I haven't talked to you in probably 10 plus years.
Wow. Well, I'm happy you're calling me tonight. How you doing?
Great. Hey, listen, you used to talk to my brother a lot. His name is Enzo. You remember Enzo Felice?
Enzo, who had a house in Florida, Enzo, or?
No, he was from Hamilton.
Okay, he was from Hamilton.
Creek, actually.
Yeah, I can't say that I remember right now, to tell you the truth. But if you say I spoke to your brother Enzo, I'm sure I spoke to your brother Enzo. So sorry about that. What's on your mind, Joe?
No problem. Two things. First of all, that play that Slavkovsky unfortunately had to hit that player, that was almost 6 feet off the board. Okay, if you're going to go up against Slavkovsky at 240 pounds, you're going to bounce off of him, or if Slavkovsky pushes him. But it's 6 feet. There shouldn't be any big deal about it. Secondly, if we didn't have to play Hoffman, Drouin, and Dadonov, we'd probably be at the top of the league with Boston. I mean, guys, this is not a tank. That's all I want to say.
Okay, now, when you say it's not a tank, the players are never going to tank. You know that, right?
Correct, of course.
Okay, but don't you think that that's where Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon are going in terms of, I won't use the word tank, but don't you think they're going in terms of a rebuild?
Yeah, you could call it a rebuild, but they're getting better every game. Like if they let the young guys play and throw in a couple of guys like Heineman when he gets back, and some guys from Laval, we got a team, man. And they're focusing on the fact that they want to be a team. I mean, every game I watch, they're getting a little bit better and better. You notice how they don't give the puck away? That's the first sign of a team coming together. Like, they don't give the puck away. I mean, it happens because they're young and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But if they learn that aspect of the game,
yeah,
they're going to be a powerhouse soon.
Listen, Joe, I think they have a lot of youthful enthusiasm. I think when you add young players to a mix, I think it does a lot of good for a team and the veterans. Just think of that 1986 team that won the Stanley Cup. There were 10 rookies on that team. Good for you. Joe, thank you so much for calling. I love Hamilton, and we'll talk to you soon. I hope it doesn't take you another 10 years.
You're back.
Hey, thank you. I hope it doesn't take you another 10 years before you call back, okay?
Well, no. Listen, we were listening and so on, but the Habs were so bad for a while. I couldn't watch them half the time.
Yeah, I understand that, but you know what? I hear you. Listen, there's better days
Habs,
ahead.
Go
Habs, go. Blah, blah, rouge. All right, back to the phone calls we go at 1-888-585-SICK, 1-888-585-7425. Special thanks to Paul in New Brunswick and Joe in Hamilton. Let's go to Pennsylvania, where Tony is standing by. Tony, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, Tony?
Very good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Hey, I just want to make a quick comment. I understand the reasoning behind working Slavkovsky slowly into the lineup, but I saw a shift today in the second period whenever they were taking all those penalties. He was paired with Sean Monahan. And although they didn't score in that shift, they did everything but score. They were that dominant, and I noticed that. And so I really want to see Slavkovsky for maybe a half a game at least, play with somebody like Sean Monahan. Like I said, I saw the dominance of that shift, and I just feel like, I think now it's time to at least slowly work him into, more minutes of top guys.
Tony, the Canadians are not going to burn Juraj Slavkovsky by giving him a game with Monahan, but I think we're going to see Slavkovsky get increased minutes and play with better players after that trade deadline for sure. Matt?
Yeah, I think so too. And it's all just a matter of building. I mean, you don't want to. They're clearly protecting him. You don't want to throw him too into the fire right off the bat, especially, they right off the hop. Kent Hughes makes his comments in the preseason. Martin St. Louis makes his comments. So you want to protect him a little bit before you're exposing him to more, and that could take time. And you know what? I know people want to see more, which is normal, but I mean, this season amongst any, there is really no rush.
Tony in Pennsylvania, thanks, man, for calling. That's a great comment by you. We continue to go to the phone lines. You called is presented by Playground on the Sick Podcast. 1-888-585-SICK, 1-888-585-7425. Back to the phone lines we go, and we have, as we're waiting for it to come in exactly, Danny in Valleyfield. Danny, how are you?
Not bad. How about yourself, Tony?
Very, very good, Danny. Thank you for calling. I know me and Matt appreciate it. What's on your mind?
You ever been to Valleyfield?
I have been to Valleyfield, yes.
You have?
Yeah.
When we had the Cavs, we had the Cavs.
Yes.
You remember going there? The Cavs in Valleyfield?
You know what? I'm not going to say I do, but I've been to Valleyfield before, but I don't know if I was at the Cash there, but I've been there before.
Okay. Because this is a hockey town, Valleyfield. We had a guy that made the National League. His name was Mario Faubert. He played
Mario Robert.
Mario Faubert.
Mario?
Yeah, Faubert.
Mario Faubert, Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I went and seen him in Quebec. He goes, if I can only get 50 points this year, I'm going to sign a nice contract.
Okay, you know what? To tell you the truth, it didn't ring a bell, so I just looked him up, and now I understand why it didn't ring a bell for me, because his last season was 1981-1982. But yes, courtesy of Hockey DB, Mario Faubert, a right-handed shooting defenseman who was drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins and played for the Pittsburgh Penguins 231 games in the regular season and another 10 games in the playoffs. But I don't remember, because back in 81, 82, I would have been 9 years old, being born in November of 72. So I would have been 9. And there's some things I remember from when I was a 9-year-old, but it was one of them was Guy Lafleur. Another one was the Canadians winning the Cup in 79. And another one was Ken Dryden's pose. But I don't remember Mario Faubert, unfortunately.
Well, that's true. He had one hell of a shot.
Okay, good. It's good to know.
We had the Claude Ruel. Remember him?
Claude Ruel, of course I know him. He used to do extra time with the players. They used to love him. Okay, would you like to talk about tonight's game by chance?
Pardon?
Would you like to talk about tonight's hockey game?
Oh, I loved it. I loved that. Goody surprised me.
Well, he's a good defenseman. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This guy is the real deal. Thank you so much for calling us. Danny, thank you so much for calling us. We appreciate it. I hope to talk to you again. Hey, I hope to run into you in Valleyfield sometime. All right, there you have it. Danny, who wanted to give a shout out to Mario Faubert from Valleyfield, who was drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins and played with the Penguins, retired in 1982. Why don't we take some comments? Actually, I'm hearing that we have another caller. Louis is in Montreal. How you doing, Louis?
Good. Thanks for taking my call. Big fan of yours, Tony.
Thank you very much, Louis. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Louis, you're not a big fan of mine. What's going on?
Great third period by the boys there. We really played hard in the PK for 5 minutes.
You're right. You're right about that. But do me a favor, Louis. Show Matt Ohayon some love too, because you said how much you like me. Matt's just there. He's waiting. He's looking. He needs to feel the love as well.
I love you too, Matt.
Louis, you're the best. I love you.
Yeah, just gonna say the third period really. I thought we played like a playoff team today.
Well, it was a gutsy effort versus a team that came out very strong, versus a team that plays with a lot of pace. It was a very gutsy effort by the Montreal Canadiens tonight. There's no doubt about it. Other thoughts?
I agree with you.
Well, I'll say this. It's the type of win that when you're making a playoff push, these are the ones that count. It's the Tuesday nights in Detroit, on the road, the Wednesday night in Carolina, where you don't really you could afford to drop a game. These are the wins that push you into the playoffs. Now, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year, obviously, but in the future, these are the types of wins where you gut it out, you eke it out, and the good teams are able to win these types of games.
All right, back to the full lines we go. But before we do, why don't we take a couple of comments? Agnello and Sammy, can you bring up a comment or two before we get to Anthony? Slavkovsky is going to stay with the big boys, it looks like, huh? This coming in from Kook 69 or Kook K69. It definitely looks that way. Anthony and St. Hubert. You're on the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro. He's Ohayon. What's going on?
Hi, Tony. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to mention, actually, I wanted to ask you, do you think when we look in the next few years that Montreal is going to be a contending team?
Yes, but next few years. I think I've said this before. I believe that the duo of Gordon and Hughes, if Bergevin's tenure with the Canadiens was 9.5 years, I expect Gordon and Hughes to be here for just as long, unless, of course, they want to do something else at one point. And I believe they will deliver a Stanley Cup to Montreal Canadiens fans. I believe the Canadiens have to finish in the bottom 5 this year. I believe they have to finish probably in the bottom 10 the year after that. All depending, though, if they finish in the bottom 5. Let's just say the Canadiens get a Bedard, a Fantilli, a Michkov next year. That's your best way of accelerating your rebuild. Drafting a generational player. At that point, you don't have to rebuild much longer. So all depend. I think this year is the most important year in the history of the rebuild. This is the year with the generational talents in the top 3 or 4. And this is the year that it's deep. And they have a couple of first-round picks. And if they build up the value of 2 or 3 of their players, they might be able to get a couple of more in the late 20s.
Okay, but do you think with their situation with the cap, we have a few bad contracts in our team, right?
Yeah, but 3 or 4 of them are going to be off the cap at the end of the year, right? So Sean Monahan's in the final year of his contract. I don't think he'll be back, so he's off the books. Jonathan Drouin's in the final year of his contract. Personally, I don't think he'll be back. He's off the books. Dadonov is in the final year of his contract. I don't think he'll be back. He's off the books. I mean, just those 3 contracts alone. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think you're saving, give or take, about $15 million. Are you not, Matt?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's funny. I mentioned I was watching the game with my uncle. He's yelling at the TV. Oh, Drouin, waste of a body on the ice. Dadonov, waste of a body on the ice. Buy him out. I go, what? Why would you buy him out? They're done at the end of the year. Sayonara. Goodbye. I hope you had a nice time here.
Okay, Anthony, thanks so much for calling us. Thank you, buddy. Look, I'm going to say this. I know a lot of people, once again, want to buy out these players, but Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes, they're businessmen. They really are like a CFO and a CEO of a company. They're very strategic in all their moves. I talk about this, talk about them often, and as if they're stockbrokers, and they have some penny stocks right now. And they're hoping that the penny stocks can turn the corner and maybe go from 2 cents to 4 cents, from 4 cents to 7 cents or 8 cents. And I brought up the example of Mike Hoffman tonight, whose value doubled in the last 24 hours based on his performance tonight. Some will say that his value is still 0, but if some would say that his value was 1 before, well, then if he doubled, now he went to 2. They're going to hope that they can have some games like this, like Hoffman did tonight. They can have some games like this for Drouin, and they can have some games like this for Dadonov. And whatever they can get, if their value goes up and they can get something for them, well, then they're a winner, because up until yesterday, they probably couldn't get anything for them. So that's why I think those guys are playing. That's why I think they play them up in the lineup. And, they're going to give them every opportunity to get going and to pick up some points. We'll get to a comment or two. Let's do this.
Tone, yeah. Let me just say, if you're a playoff team or you're a team bound for the playoffs, you think you can make a run and you're still looking to acquire at the deadline. Now, I'm not saying Mike Hoffman is the final piece, but let's say you're a team who's struggling on the power play. Mike Hoffman isn't good for the Canadiens because they can't insulate him well. A team that's making a cup run can insulate him very well and use him strategically rather than needing to roll him out on lines constantly nonstop. So, I wouldn't say his value is near 0 because other teams can put him in a better situation than he's in here.
And you know what? And it takes one guy to like you in life, right? With a company, it takes one boss to like you. With a hockey team, it takes one coach to like you, or it takes one general manager to like you. And the other beauty about the NHL playoffs, of course, is there's no quota or cap on the amount of players you can have. And you know what? A lot of teams just want to stack up on depth because players go down. they have injuries, and you want to try and add as many as you can. All right, okay. We've gone for just over an hour, about 5 minutes over an hour. I think we're going to take one more phone call for tonight. We're going to be back tomorrow, and I can't wait. Agnello, are we going to one more call, or are we going to go to one more comment? Chris Neil is getting his number retired by the Senators. In the words of Tony Marinaro, is this a joke? Look, Chris Neil was a heart and soul player. He sacrificed his body for that Ottawa Senators team for more than a decade. Having said that, clearly if he was a Montreal Canadian, he'd not have his jersey retired. And I think a lot of teams in the National Hockey League wouldn't retire his jersey. Ottawa hasn't, look, good for him and his family. It's not something I would have done. But I do know how appreciated he was by his teammates. And if I was playing hockey, I'd love to have a guy like that on my team to fight battles, not only for him, but for everyone else. But in terms of the standard of retiring a jersey, obviously it's higher in several markets, more so than it is in Ottawa.
You know what, Tone? I'll say this. I wasn't around to see him play, so I can't speak to his style of play. But just looking at numbers alone, the Montreal Canadiens retired the number of Émile Bouchard, who was not an all-star scorer by any means. In fact, he had about quadruple the amount of penalty minutes than he did in points. What I'll say about Chris Neil is that
he captained a team that won Stanley Cups, though.
Sure. And you know what? That's not nothing. That's nothing to sneeze at, but but my point is I'm a
little bit surprised that you brought that up tonight. We're talking Chris Neil, and you're talking to me about the Émile Bouchard.
Because what I'm saying is that Émile Bouchard, when you think of the teams that won the Stanley Cups, the legends that have played for this franchise, people my age don't typically think Émile Bouchard as one of these legends. He's probably the one that we see in the rafters and go, who's that guy? So,
people, hold on a second, Matt. How old are you?
I'm 25.
Well, people your age don't think Émile Bouchard because he played in the 40s and the 50s.
No, but we know of Jean Beliveau who played.
You were born in the late 90s.
So, but what I'm saying is that not every team has the history and the lore of the Montreal Canadiens. And I could say, growing up watching Chris Neil from a Montreal lens, this guy was the heart and soul of that team. I have friends in Ottawa. If I talk to them about the Ottawa Senators, and which I have in the past, the one player that always got brought up, of course, there's Spezza, Alfredson, Heatley, and Dominic Hasek played for them, and Zdeno Chara played for them, of course. But they always brought up Chris Neil because that guy was a heart and soul guy.
He was, but
for 10, 15 years.
Perfect. Are the Canadians going to retire Brendan Gallagher's number?
Probably not.
Well, Brendan Gallagher's a heart and soul guy who scored 30 goals in multiple seasons. Brendan Gallagher's a much better hockey player than Chris Neil.
Okay, but again, Tony, the standard for a franchise that's been there for 110 years plus versus a franchise that is only a franchise since 1993. There's a big difference.
Well, there's a big difference on that point. I'll agree with you. I didn't agree with your other points, but if you start retiring Chris Neil's number 25, there's a lot better days ahead for the Ottawa Senators with the Brady Kachucks and the Stutzlas and the Jake Sandersons of this world, that if you're starting to retire Chris Neil's number, you're going to end up retiring a lot of numbers over the next 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years. On that note, I don't want to end the Sick podcast tonight talking about the Ottawa Senators.
About Chris Neil.
I want to end it with the Montreal Canadiens. And Yellow, if you can throw out one more comment, Montreal Canadiens related. And if you're watching right now on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, comment Sick. It's a way that we can feel the love. And if tomorrow you or one of your buddies are going to go listen on Apple, Google, or Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. It means a lot to us. What's the difference between the way Slafkovsky got hit and the way he hit for 1 to be 5 in a game, and against him, no penalty whatsoever? This coming from Robert Fortin. I think there was a difference. It kind of resembles that a little bit, but I think there was a difference. And I think there should have been a penalty when he got hit. but I don't think it should have been a 5. And I think even though there was no malicious intent, I don't have a problem with Slafkovsky getting 5 tonight. By the letter of the law, I think he should have got 5, and he did get 5.
Yeah, I agree. I think he deserved the 5. He got the 5. He got the game as well. Again, not a suspension. The difference is that, Slafkovsky didn't take as hard as a fall. That's the difference. He didn't take as hard as a fall. He didn't get hurt on the play. Luff got hurt on the play, and generally, if you get hurt on a ticky-tack play like that where it could go either way, you're going to get the call.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get suspended either, but if he does, I'll say this, he'll get maximum 1 game.
Yeah, okay.
Matt, thanks for jumping on. You and I are going to do this on several occasions. You jump on when I'm on. I'm going to jump on when you're on. We're going to have a lot of fun. And tomorrow night, it's the Vancouver Canucks visiting the Montreal Canadiens at the Bell Center. And I'll be back on, same time, same place, right at the end of the game. For Matt Ohayon, I'm Tony Marinaro. Special thanks to all of our sponsors, brought to you by 8.6 Beer, La Cage, and Energy Transportation Group. For all of you watching via all social media, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, you are our sick army. You are the reason why we do this. We thank you very much for your support. We thank you very much for engaging with the messages and on the chat and calling in. For all of you, I'm Marinaro. Have a great night. 3-2 Habs win.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. 8.6. Intense by nature. And La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.